Hello, Rajesh.
Hello, Rajesh. So why don't we get started? Let's do the prayer.
ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Okay, welcome back. So I know that by default the situation is not that great, but let's be positive and surrender to His will. That's exactly what we are learning from these chapters because the situations appears to be difficult, sometimes unmanageable, but at least we have that trust in that higher. We have that trust in that intelligent order of the universe, which is Bhagavan. So, with that, I think I really wanted to be silent and thankful to all the people who are fighting this battle for us. It's thought that it is going to be a couple of weeks, but it's already 2 months, and we have no idea how long it is going to be. But let's pray that all of us are healthy, and let's pray that the world will come out of it. Having said that, let's continue our discussion on this wonderful chapter. This chapter is so beautiful. Even when I prepare for this, I feel so good because this chapter is giving that much precious knowledge. So, the theme of this chapter is Krishna is going to explain who he is, essentially, who is Bhagavan. So, we saw that very systematically he is unfolding that topic. He said that there are two nature for the Bhagavan. One is a higher nature, which is called Para Prakriti. Para Prakriti is the absolute reality, what we call as Brahman, without any attributes, which is not conditioned by space or time. We saw that this is Satyam Jnanam Anandam, meaning absolute existence. We saw that Ananya Abaditam, like which is not dependent upon anything. Ananya Adhishtanam, that which is not dependent upon anything. And Abadidam Satyam, that which is not subjected to negation, that not subjected to change. So that is the first part. And this higher nature of the Lord is always there, irrespective of the time, whether there is pralaya or prabhava, where there is a universe manifested or not, this is there. And from there, the apara prakriti came forth. Apara prakriti can be considered as a lower nature of Ishvara, which is the transcend, means immanent part of the Ishvara. If you remember, we differentiated what is transcendent and what is immanent. So this immanent part of Ishvara constitutes of the physical and the subtle matter. Combination of this is the entire universe. So from that perspective, everything in the universe is nothing but Bhagavan, or the manifestation of the Bhagavan. And we saw the creation theory, or the theory of manifestation expounded by Vedanta. We had compared the different schools of thoughts, like the Abrahamic traditions. They talk about the creatio ex nihilo, for which there is something in our tradition also, which is called Asatkaryavada. From there, we said that when it came to the Sankhyan philosophy, we called something called Satkaryavada. And within that Satkaryavada, there is something called Parinamavada, because from the fundamental reality, the world got evolved. So when the world got evolved, it is different from the original. So that is what the Sankhya's tells. But Vedantas called something different, which is called Vivartavada, which is called a projection. So the idea is the clay is never away from the pot. When you see the clay pot, the clay always exists. When we see the gold and ornament, the gold is always there. In fact, the existence of the golden ornament is because of the gold. So that is why Krishna said, they are dependent upon me, but I am not dependent upon anything. I have independent existence, but they do have only a dependent or a relative existence. All that we saw. And then we saw that, like, some people, even though the government, then we saw, like, if you want to see the God, how can I see him? Krishna said, just open your eyes and look around. We saw 14 beautiful examples. Rasohamapsu kaunteya, prabhasmi shashisureyo. So wherever there is a glory expressed in the universe, remember, for the bucket of water to reflect the sun, the bucket has to be there, the water has to be there, the water should be pure, and the water should be quiet and steady. Then the reflection will come out. So like that, even though there are multiple manifestations of Ishvara in the world, when means there are some aspects through which you can see the glory of Ishvara. So Krishna enumerated 14 different examples. When you taste the water, the taste of the water, the wetness of the water, the fire of the sun, the light of, means the fire of the, means the Agni, the fire, the sun, the light of the sun and the moon, all that is me. So you cannot miss me. Just open your eyes and see where there is the absolute reality, where there is any glory, that is me. So then the question is, why some people are not able to recognize this Ishvara? So that is what we spent 1 hour last week, because there was a lot of symbolism. That is why we spent for one verse, which is the verse 15. Why certain people do not seek Ishvara? So the reason is what happened. They are deluded. They are drunken. They are drunken means they are deluded by their sensual demands. What happened? These means there are three things Krishna said, right? 3 type of people do not seek Ishvara. So dushkritikaha. So the people who did some wrongdoing, either in the current past life or in the previous life. So they have some this adrishta karma. And because of that, what happens? They are confined to the lower nature. Lower means it is not a gradation. It is not saying that, yeah, he is studying in PhD and the small kid is going to the first grade. It's not means saying that the child is not, it's like that, it's like saying that the child is bad, right? Not at all. The child is growing, the growing state. So the people who do not seek were not condemned by Krishna, but he is just explaining why certain people are not turning to Ishvara. So 3 things he said. Dushkritika, one is who did some wrongdoing in their past. Then Mudha, they are deluded because their priorities are higher. Priorities are different. For example, all of us have the Gita priority right now. And for some people, it might be a show in Netflix. And for some people, it might be drinking. So there are different priorities for different people. And for some people, some deluded people, this is not a priority at all. So such people do not turn to Ishvara. And the third one is Nara Adhama. The people, Adhama means lower. It's not, again, it is not a caste system or it is not a gradation of people. It is just say that people who are less evolved. Less evolved means people, what is the difference between an evolved or a matured human being and a person who is as good as animal? The animal man, actually, Abraham Maslow, in his definition of the hierarchy of needs, he comes up with the definition of animal man, man, and an evolved man. The difference is, if you can put a break between your feeling and response, that person is considered as an evolved person. So Narathama means the people who act instinctively. Like if you press certain button, you can see the predicted behavior. It's like animals. Animals you can see to a certain extent the programmed behavior. And that is why you are able to train the animal and make use of them, because they behave just like instinctively programmingly. So some human being, even though they got the human form, they are still confined to that animal. It's already a transition stage. So the first year when you go to college, means in our time, like when I was studying in India, means the college, there was complete freedom. The school, it was very strict. So when these kids get into the college first year, oh my God, they start enjoying the whole college life because they're not evolved. Because if somebody is forcing them to study, they won't study. Like that, these naradamas or less evolved people, they cannot seek Ishvara. They get a different priorities. And what happened? Such deluded people, either because of the dushkritika, the wrong actions, because of the bad karma, or delusion, or less evolution, what happens? Their mind is robbed, or their discrimination, ability to see what is right and wrong, is deluded by Maya. Maya is also a delusion, right? There are two problems. One is avarana, and the other one is vikshepa. So you see something that doesn't exist, that is vikshepa. Avarana means you do not see what exists. So as a result, you think that your happiness lies in the money or the women or the men or the drinks or the vacation, etc. And you try to seek happiness in a lot of worldly objects. So their chetas, their mind is robbed away by this Maya. And such people, what happens? We call them as asura. So the definition of asura we saw was asuranam bhavam ashritaha. That refers to the people who revel in sense or sense enjoyments, drinking, eating, etc. So that's why I said, like in the Puranic literature, right? The Puranas got evolved. The Puranas are story form. You can see the people with a lot of damstra, with the long tongue, long, big sensual stuff, because their attention is only on the sense objects. And what happens? Even when the Amrita is there, they will go after the Mohini. So that was symbolically represented. They left Amrita and they went after Mohini. And that is why Mohini is called as Maya Mohini. So the definition of the, so what happens to us? We take that as a Puranic story, somewhere, sometime happened. And we don't think that what happens, the Mohini is deluding us every day. We cannot set our priorities properly. Forget about the spiritual path. Even studies. The other day, somebody was telling me, like, he wanted to write an exam to get a certification, and that never happened. Why? Because other priorities. What is that priorities? Movies, or going somewhere, or playing cards. So they cannot prioritize even within the worldly life what is higher and what is lower. So such people, how can they even prioritize the highest? So that's what Krishna is talking here. So such people are asuras. So don't think that asuras are somewhere outside of us. Asuras are inside us. We have asuras also. So when these asuric tendencies dominate us, we becomes an asura. And asura, the definition is one who revels only in the sense organs. Nothing more he will see. And such people, and there is also asura has a tendency, when that sensual enjoyment become higher, what is going to happen? It forces them to hurt others, to lie others, to grab the legitimate need of other people. So that's what it is. So you could see in Puranas, like these asuras will come and destroy all these yajnas. So yajnas is what? It is a culture. It is a lifestyle based upon Panchamaha Yajna. Panchamaha Yajna is supporting other people, caring for other people, caring for the welfare of the community, right? Living a righteous life, making sure that the family tradition is maintained, making sure that the environment is properly cared, making sure that the scriptures are taught. So when somebody comes and destroy that, that is what is symbolically showed as destructing the yajna. You can see a Maricha and Subahu coming and destroying Vishwamitra's yajna. This is what it is symbolically means. They come and make sure that the dharmic lifestyle is destroyed. So what happens? These asuric tendencies, and there's a beautiful Ramayana called Adhyatma Ramayana by Vyasa. So there, the whole Ramayana is happening in my mind. That's why it's called Adhyatma Ramayana. It's a Ramayana within myself. So the Asuras, the Marichas, Subahu, Ravana, everybody is in my mind. Different emotions and thoughts. They comes and grab my mind. So this is what is Asura. So these Asuras will force tendencies in us to destroy other people, legitimately cheat means cheat the other people's legitimate needs, hurt other people. Why? Because I don't care anything. I just care only about myself and my happiness. Maximum my family. Within my family, it's me. So that's the attitude. So this is this type of, so it's a, all these verses are contemplated, and we need to see whether Asuras means what are all the Asuras lying in our eyes. I talked about Hiranyaksha. Who is Hiranyaksha? One whose eyes is always on the gold, always on the money. That is Hiranyaksha. So this is the Asura. So we spend a lot of time because I really wanted this idea to go in and make sure that we are shaking off this story concept of Asura and relating that Asura and Deva to ourselves. Okay, so we saw this in detail. So now let's go to the next verse. So now the first verse, which is the verse 15, we heard people who do not seek Ishvara. People do not seek Ishvara because of three reasons. One is Dushkritikaha, they did some wrong action in the near past or in the remote past. Second one is what? They are deluded. And the third one is they are not evolved. In contrast to that, there are a set of people who identify a higher purpose of life, who identify a higher aspect of life. So let's see who are they, because the first category is do not recognize Ishvara at all. The second category of people is they are certain degree they identify. So Krishna called them into, group them or classify them into four categories. So let's listen to the chanting.
चतुर्विधा भजन्ते मां जनाः सुकृतिनोऽर्जुन आर्तो जिज्ञासुरर्थार्थी ज्ञानी च भरतर्षभ.
Those who chant Bhagavad Gita, those who occasionally hear about Bhagavad Gita, most of the people would have heard about this verse. A lot of people quote this verse, misquote this verse. It's a often taught verse. Four type of devotees. So let's try to understand what exactly it is. Chaturvidha bhajante ma. Chatur means four, right? Chatur means four. Chaturvidha, four type of people. Vidha means kinds or type. Four categories of people. Bhajante ma. They worship me, or they recognize me. Worship me means recognize me and relate to me. Worship means a kind of relation. That's it. See, I can relate to people in different way, and one way of looking at somebody with respect, with value, and with a reverence. That is what is called worship. So a lot of people, four types of people recognize and revere me and worship me. So Chaturvida bhajante ma. Jana Sukritinarjuna. Jana means people. So four categories of people recognize me. And what is the speciality? Because earlier people do not recognize that higher nature. They did Dushkrita. So the opposite of Dushkrita means Sukrita. Sukrita means they have done something good in the past. So they have some good karma. They had done something good, because of which, because otherwise they will not recognize that Ishvara. So the people who had done some sukrita, who did some pious deeds or some good karmas, either in the near past or in the remote past. So Arjuna, oh Arjuna, four type of people recognize me. Four type of people recognize me and relate with me. Jana Sukriti Arjuna. And what are they? Artho Jijnasurartharthi Jnani cha Bharata Rishabha. Bharata Rishabha. Rishabha means bull. Bharata Rishabha means bull among the lineage of Bharata. Bull means it's an ancient Sanskrit usage, meaning the one who stand out. Because out of hundreds of cows, if there is one bull, that bull will be noted. So among a lot of people in the clan of Bharata, you are one of the noted one. You are one of the powerful one. So that's why the usage is there. So Bharata Rishabha, or best among the lineage of Bharata, there are 4 type of people who worships me because they have done some good deeds, and they are Arthaha. Arthaha means distressed. They have a trouble. So Jijnasu. Jijnasu means inquisitive people, seekers of knowledge. So Arthaha, distressed people. Jijnasu means intellectually and spiritually inquisitive people, or the seekers of knowledge. Artharthi. Artharthi means seekers. Artha means wealth, the one who seeks wealth. And finally, Jnani, the one who knows the reality, the self-realized masters. So these are the 4 people who seeks me. Please note these 4. It's very important. Artho, Arthaha, Jijnasu, Arthati, and Jnani. Please note that this is not a sequential order. If you order it sequentially, it will be Arthaha, Arthati, Jijnasu, and Jnani. Just to keep the meter properly, he changed the word. He put Jijnasu in front of Arthati. So the sequencing is Arthaha, Arthati, Jijnasu, and Jnani. So let's go and see what exactly they are. Any questions? You all heard about these words, right? Most of you might have heard about these words. Okay. So the people who do good deeds, Sukritaha, Sukritinaha, the people who do good actions now or in the previous life, and they seek Ishvara because of the punya they earned due to the good actions they have done. Remember now how important is that law of karma session we did? That's very important. Every verse we have to go and refer. Now when you hear punya and papa, don't get confused. When you hear about drishta and adrishta, please don't get confused. When you hear about deva, don't get confused. When you hear about prayatna, don't get confused. When you hear about the karmic force, don't get confused, right? So this is very important. So since they have done something in the past, they earn some punya, and that punya gets into an input to your current action or the current prarabdha. As a result, you recognize that higher. And when you recognize that, because remember, somewhere you have to earn the punya, because animals cannot do that. Means, of course, in Purana, you hear the story, but that's all story form. It is to demonstrate something. Only you need a human intellect to recognize Ishvara. Of course, you might be able to surrender to something, but to relate with Ishvara properly, you need an evolved mind. This would have given you this. So that is what it is. So 4 types of people seek Ishvara. And because the punyas, right, the typical punya you enjoy because of some good action, there are 2 types of punya. Remember, we talked about this in the karma theory. So one type of punya is going to give you the material wealth, the pleasure, comfort, all these things. So, but they means the way they earn the spiritual growth is their own self-effort. But there are some other karmas which is going to give you spiritual punya. So this punya karma, what happens? This person may be born in a very, 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 very unconducive environment. He might have been actually denied all the scriptural teaching. He may not have exposed to the scriptures properly. But if you have that punya, karma, no matter where you are born, you will eventually end up and get this. Look at Swami Tadatmananda, who is in New Jersey. He was born in Milwaukee, that area. there was no possibility, remote possibility of him becoming a monk. But finally, where he ended up. Look at Valmiki. You all know the story of Valmiki, right? Valmiki was who was Valmiki?
A dacoit.
He was a dacoit, but where the karma has taken him. And I mean, I don't want to quote that example because that can confuse you. Even Ajamala in the Bhagavata, Ajamala's story, people always think that just because by mistake he called Narayana, Narayana came in, and they fail to read the next passage in Bhagavata. The next passage tells that that was a dream. So after having that dream of these Yamakinkaras, what happened? Ajamala completely turned around. But the way he got that dream, and then he went to Haridwar and started practicing all these Hatha Yoga, Pranayama, spiritual practices, and that is how he escaped. Nobody can just by calling Narayana's God by mistake can get into these things. So these things are wrong interpretation. So the Ajamalopakhyanam, a lot of people quote, they don't read Bhagavata. So anybody quote here afterwards, please tell them, or you yourself go and read the next verses of Ajamalopakhyanam in Bhagavatam. So this is very important. So let's come back to this. So even if Srinarayana Guru of Kerala, we talked about him, he was born in a low caste means family. So traditionally Sanskrit teaching was denied to them, but he became one of the greatest monk the country had produced. So this is karma. So it doesn't matter where you are born, these type of punya will force you and seek Ishvara. There is a beautiful story in Bhagavata or Vishnu Purana about this. You know who it is? Prahlad. Who is Prahlad by birth?
Son of Hiranyakashipu, a demon.
Yeah, he was born to the greatest asuras of the world. Meaning, if you translate that into the modern terms, he was born to the most materialistic person in the world. But look at the turnaround. So the karmas can take you to the right place. So have that faith. So that's not the topic. So let's go to the 4 type of devotees. So among these Sukritins, like who recognize and worship Ishvara, there are 4 types. All of them have sufficient recognition of Ishvara to be devotees, but their degree of devotion or degree of understanding of the Bhagavan varies, right? Their attitude, why they seek Ishvara, what type of prayers they do, that is what is going to determine these 4 categories or 4 types. So we need to understand this in detail, and we need to understand this very clearly. So there are 4 people: Artaha, Jijnasu, Artharthi, and Jnani. And if you put the gradation, it is Artha, Artharthi, Jijnasu, and Jnani. So let's try to understand one by one. So first one is Artha. Arthi means sorrow, grief, any stress or pressure, discomfort, like a disease or a financial problem, corona, etc. All that problems. So Artha means a person who is seized by a problem or a distress. It could be a problem caused by the nature, or it could be a problem caused by the other people around me, or it could be an emotional issue in my mind. Adi Bhaudika, Adi Devika, or Adhyatmika Tapa. So a person who is troubled with a problem is called Artha. So when that person is seized by the distress, when that person is suffered by the distress, what happens? If he had done some punya karma, if he has a sukruti, what happens? Some people even do not recognize Ishvara at that point of time. But he won't remember Ishvara at any other time. When the things are going fine, he never think about Ishvara. He is not interested in self-realization. He is not interested in getting freedom from suffering because his priorities are different. But when some problems comes in, when all the problems, all the other solutions are running out, or at least he thinks that, okay, this also is a valid input, so he pray. And such people, so they think about Ishvara, not always. When they do think at the time of a crisis, because they think that this Ishvara's input is a valid input and that can help me. So such people are called Artaha. So if you go behind a idol of a temple, or if you go to a church or a mosque or any places, most of the prayer you hear is this. There is nothing wrong in that. And in fact, Krishna is saying that they are Sukritins. At least they recognize me when there is a trouble. But let me ask you one go. This is not to say that it is good or bad or anything like that, right? This is just trying to understand how we evolve. Initially, we start like this, and then we evolve into Artho, Artharthi, Jitnyasu, and Jnani. But at the beginning is Artha. When actually, I know when I was working in New York in one company, one person said, like, he was a agnostic, and one day he was in a plane and he never called God at all. But one day the plane got turbulent and everybody thought that, okay, this is a crash. That time he said the word God came out of his mouth. So this is Artha. And some people are there, even they don't even call God at that point of time. So this is Arthaha. But let me ask you one question. What exactly is their end goal?
Material gains, material happiness, security.
Are they really, really interested in Ishvara?
Maybe, I mean, maybe not hard to say, but
It's only a problem solver for them, right?
yes.
Their goal is their removal of their disease or the problem. So once that problem is over, I can go and lead my normal life. So Ishvara is not in their vicinity at all. Ishvara is there when there is a problem comes in. They call Ishvara for what? To remove that problem. So Ishvara is not the destination for them. The real destination is something else. And Ishvara is not an end. Ishvara is only a means.
Means to an end.
Clear?
Rajesh ji, but some people go through a change at that time. Suppose somebody is having a severe disease and they are cured, after praying and everything. They change to a different personality.
Absolutely. So there is no.
So from Artha, they don't stay as Artha, right?
Not at all. See, it can. That's exactly what the previous sentence I said, right? Everybody can start with Artha, and from there they can move to Artharthi. And then they can go to Jitnyasu, and from there they can go to Jnani. That is totally fine. So that might be the trigger, because some people, when they, as I said, like this person, that flight accident was the beginning. Once he get out of it, and I was reading Robinson Crusoe, this beautiful book, where he never used to call God. But what happened? He got into an island, and 1 or 2 years passed alone in an island. At that point of time, slowly, these thoughts came in, because he realized, oh my God, I came to this island after fighting so much of, oh my God, this is restarting.
We can see you, Rajaji.
Yeah, I think my laptop may restart somehow. So if that is the case, please give me 2 minutes.
Hey, Rajesh.
We lost him, I think.
No, I think it was his laptop was running an update. Suddenly it was because
What happened to his audio today? Sometimes it was not quite disturbing.
It was cracking in between also. Yeah,
now it's getting better. But initially it was.
So we lost the video, right? We can only hear people right now. Or can you also?
No, video's on.
Video's on?
Yeah, I can see everybody.
I can see everybody.
Yeah.
Let me rejoin then.
Yeah, we can see you too.
I can see no one.
You can't see anybody? Okay.
I can't see anyone. I'll just rejoin.
Sure.
Well, actually, now I can. Never mind. My bad. I got a new computer. It's a Mac. Getting used to it.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah, sometimes it's like relearning everything. We used to see it on the right, it is on the left.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah, the
on
minimize and maximize is on the other side, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one, and I keep messing up the Alt and Control.
yeah,
Like,
Control C, Control V is like now Command C, Command
yeah,
F.
there's the command button. Getting used to that, and like just overall, I think it might be a little faster, might be a little bit more performant, but yeah, it's a lot of apps that I'm used to on Windows. I don't find on the Mac, so I think Windows has come a long way. It's pretty good now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's true.
Because nothing is free on on Apple.
No, nothing's free on Apple. Like absolutely not. And the same, if it is not free on Windows, it's a lot more expensive on Apple.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For example, Office products.
Yeah, true.
So it just costs developers a lot more money to write their software again for a different OS.
Yeah, I think the analogy is if you can put in $1,200 to $1,400 to buy a laptop, a Mac, then you can afford the software.
Yeah, absolutely. It is expensive.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for Rajesh, let me ask you, maybe you guys know. I mean, he said Aarti means any sorrow or grief. I thought Aarti meant chanting a prayer.
Oh, that's
No, that is
that's a Hindi
Aarti.
Aarti. That's a Hindi Aarti.
And this is Aarti, THI.
This is no. He said ARTI is any sorrow or grief.
I think it probably means different in Sanskrit
T.
and Hindi, I guess.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
two separate meanings. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a separate meaning. So I think it comes from like Aarthi, as in earth. Earth is maybe wealth in Sanskrit.
No. It's
No?
Arati. It's ARATHI. That means showing camphor and all those diyas to Bhagwan.
No,
That is Arati.
Yeah. That's the
Puja
Arati that Rohitji is talking about. The Arati that Rajeshji was implying.
No, that's Arthi.
Arthi, exactly.
Arti, just Arti. Artho, Atharthi, Jignasu, Jnani. That's what the 4 categories of people. That's exactly what we finished with the kids. I was just teaching them about 9 types of devotion and 4 types of devotees. And we gave example like those who are in distress, like Draupadi, she only called him at the last minute.
Yeah.
She called out for Krishna. That's a typical example of Arthi.
Yeah, but in the PowerPoint, he had ARTI listed as any source of grief. So unless there are 2 separate meanings in Sanskrit and in Hindi.
No,
I think one is T and one is TH. So it's a different pa. Arti and Artha.
Yeah, definitely different meanings. One is like the Arati you show to God. Other one is a materialist.
Plus, I think when you translate it into English or you write it in English, I think it's not how you read it. I think the reading is an issue also.
Yeah.
And the Arthati is actually, Artha is wealth, all the material things is Artha. So the Arti who's in distress will call, right? He is calling out for the wealth, for the material benefits he is calling out. Typical example is Ravana. He had everything, but still he was worshipping Shiva for more and more things. He wanted to take Shivalingam and take it to Sri Lanka, no? That also he tried to do it. And they didn't want the Shivalingam to be moved. So Ganesha played a trick and made him put in Rameshwara. There's a big story on that.
Wasn't the Rameshwaram Shiva made by Rama?
Rama, that is, he worshipped him.
But did he create it out of? But I think there was one which he created out of sand. One Hanuman bought from Shiva, and then I think he left it. Right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I thought one was the Hanuman one, and then one was the
Yes,
Rama
there are two
one.
of them. Two of them in
right.
So Roger, what is the Hanuman one and where is the Hanuman one?
So Hanuman was asked to bring a Shiva. So they wanted a Shivaling to do puja for Rama, and then I think he asked Rama. I think what's his name? Sorry, Hanuman was asked to bring it from Shiva, and I think he got late. By the time he got here, it was too late. So Rama didn't want to wait, and Rama just went ahead and created one with sand. So if you go to Rameshwaram now, you find actually two Shivalingas, one created by Rama, with sand, and then one which Hanuman bought from Kailash. Yeah, so that's the story. I mean, that's the story how it goes. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's true or not, but
they say Hanuman is Shiva. He's a Shivang. He's an Ansh of.
He's an Ansh of Shiva. Yeah,
incarnation of Shiva.
Quite possible. Quite possible. I think in Mahabharata, Shiva, I mean, Hanuman is there, right? I mean, Hanuman is the only character from Ramayana who's in Mahabharata.
Yes, he was on the flagstaff of Arjuna.
No, plus he comes, I think Bhima comes across.
Bhima, yes.
Comes across Hanuman when he's going for something, I guess.
Draupadi sends him to get some flowers and Hanuman tests him.
Yeah.
I think Rajesh Ji is back.
Yeah, I think.
No, but I don't want to disturb that.
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
Apologies. Suddenly my laptop just got rebooted. Some update was pending. I was not waiting.
Right.
Rajeshji, I had a quick counter example to the scenario that Bhuvanaji mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of times, the grace of God acts as a trigger to a materialistic person, and he awakens, he enlightens. But there are some incorrigible kind of people, like who just keep going on and on and on. And
yeah, and
is there any hope for that?
Right, a devotee, a so-called devotee, can become completely go away from God. Also, is there? So this is only a state. So depending upon your karma and your prayatna, you can evolve and you can come down. Completely possible. And unless you become a jitnyasu and a jnani, your faith is vulnerable, like it is at risk always. It can go up or it can go down. And later Krishna clarifies that.
But then Rajesh, there are some people, I mean, they remember God even when they are not in trouble, but the end goal is only to get certain things or never to get into trouble or something like that. So then,
That is the next category, Artharthi.
So I have one question, Rajeshji. When the person temporarily hates God or he wants to move away from God and then realizes, because like, for example, the person who's seeing all this deaths and all that, they don't believe in God and for some time they are away, and then after some time they calm down and they come back to reality and they're so during that time they were away or they were cursing God or whatever. Is that a sin?
No, I think it's a karma. It's okay. Those things are
but from God's point of view, from his book.
Not at all. But I think, more than cursing God, right? It's a, what exactly is their act? Are they doing some adharmic act?
No,
that's a, so then it's okay, right? So the thing is, we cannot judge God or see God from a human mind, because if it is me, somebody out of anger, if they tell something to me, I may keep that in mind. But God is all merciful. He will forgive. But here the point is, there are people, when they relate with God, they can relate with God with 4 different purposes. And the first category is, they're least bothered about God in most of the cases. But at least when a problem comes in, they have the punya to recognize that there is something higher in life. And they invoke that. So that is what is Arthaha. The second type of people is called Artharthi. So again, this is a dicing and slicing. And I feel that this is a very good dicing and slicing. Artharthi means what? See, even when they are not trouble, they do the formal rituals. They may do Vishnu Sahasranama daily. They just do pray. But why do they pray God? To the point Amisha was talking. So why do they pray God? They want a normal life. They wanted to make sure that their job is secure. They get promotion. They get their child get a good admission. There is nothing wrong in that. So people perform prayers or people do prayers in order to invoke Ishwara's grace. For what? To help him gaining what he needs. It could be a higher score in your exam, or it could be a better house or a branded car or what not. So people may have likes and dislikes, and some of these likes might be swatik, some of these likes could be rajasic, and some of these likes could be tamasic. Even tamasic, some people pray that, okay, let that person suffer. Okay, Shatru Samhara Puja is not this. Please don't misunderstand that. It's a different. Shatru Samhara Puja is the enemy is always within me, as per the Tantric book. So, but there are people who curse, who pray for the problems of other people, but they always feel that my prayatna is not good enough to gain the result. There is always a hidden variable or an unknown factor which contributes to the result. And whenever they seek a kamya karma, meaning a desire to be fulfilled, what happens? They seek God's help also as an input. Just like they seek everything, they seek God's. So again, the God is, to Amisha's point, God is not the end result. They are not interested in seeing God or anything like that. Even going to heaven. Why do people want to go to heaven? Honestly, please take a moment and think and tell me why people want to go to heaven. Is it truly because of the love for God or a higher spiritual life?
No, for pleasures.
To be happy.
They think that's a happy place.
Exactly. So I always quote this example, right? A person in a third world country is like a African country living in a remote place. Coming to United States is like a heaven. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's relative.
It's relative. So compared to what we get here, a higher scale of happiness, that's what they're thinking. Look at the description of heaven in our Puranas. Look at the description of heaven in Quran. Look at the description of heaven in Bible. If you really take Quran, I was reading it, so that I can talk about that right now. So if you really look at the description of heaven in Quran, you could see just complementary to Saudi Arabia. What is not there in Saudi Arabia, you could see that in heaven. There's nothing wrong in that. I'm not criticizing it. You could see similar description in our Puranas also. Like,
so Rajeshji, this is Sanjay. Sorry, I have a question here, right?
Yeah.
So what? I mean, what is pleasure in heaven actually? If
pleasure in heaven, what is the pleasure in the world? Like, why do you go to Hawaii?
No, but I mean, like, so I think that's where I feel this is a little bit of contradictory, right? Mm-hmm. When we leave the world, mm-hmm. we are leaving the body behind. Mm-hmm. It's just our soul which is going on, right?
Not at all. In heaven, right? So who said in heaven means what? First of all, we have to go back and discuss that. I think we discussed this in the karma theory class, right? So what happens is heaven means it is not like the soul going to heaven. The heaven means you are getting into a new life, which is a higher plane of existence. So it's a deviation from the topic, but let me give you a 2-minute answer, and I would request you to watch the video on karma because we spent some time there. So the idea is, if your sanchita karma has lot of punyas in that, right? If the sanchita karma is skewed with a lot of punya karmas, what happens? The prarabdha, the next prarabdha will be predominantly punya, because if you are born in the human world, it is a mishra. Remember the word we used, mishra, at that point of time, those who attended that class? It could be a mixture of punya and papa. But if it is 100% punya is going to determine your prarabdha, you will be born in a different plane of existence. There are 7 higher plane of existence and there are 7 lower plane of existence. If it is only papas, your next birth, it could be physical or it could be non-physical, but you will experience some pleasure. So to counter your point, what you said, for example, in your dream, imagine that you are in a dream, right? You are not physically means active in that dream. It is all the creation of your mind. Remember the example I told you the other day, like somebody was spitting corona to a person, and this person was extremely suffering. And that moment, the suffering was real for him. So heaven means you will have some experience of some happiness. Where sometimes you may have a body, sometimes you may not have a body. Again, this heaven and hell is not a topic of Vedanta. Vedanta, we call it heaven and hell because just to show the finite nature of heaven and hell. So even if you go to heaven, what happens? Once your punya exhausted, what is going to happen? You will have to come back, take the next birth in a different way. So 8th chapter is going to talk about that exact same verse. But the point is that here, the heaven, people wanted to go to heaven. In ancient times, people used to do rituals after rituals for going to heaven. For what? They wanted to enjoy pleasures. 2nd chapter, verse 41 to 43, Krishna criticizes these people who are heaven-bound philosophers. He said, Yamimam pushpitam vacham prapatanti vipaschitaha veda vadarada partha nanyadarthiti vadinaha. So he tells these are flowery words of the unwise. That is what, anybody has Gita book in your hand? Can you refer 2nd chapter verse 41 or 42?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Can you just open that verse if you don't mind?
Yeah. 2nd chapter 41.
41 or 42? I just wanted to give the pramana or the proof what we are talking here.
Which shloka? Vyavasayatmika buddhihi?
No. Actually, Yamimam pushpitam vacham prapatanti vipaschitaha vedavadarada partha nanyadarthidi vadinaha.
Correct.
Kamatmana surgapara janma karma vipaschita kriya vishesha bahula. Next verse, look at that. Bhoga aishwarya gatim pratim. People wanted to go to heaven for what? Bhoga meaning enjoyment, sensual enjoyment, and aishwarya or overlordship. So the words Krishna used to describe such people is flowery words of the unwise. They quote Vedas and say that going to heaven is the ultimate. Absolutely not. So Sanjay ji, I think we can talk offline, but the idea is the heaven means it's a higher plane of existence. It could be physical or it could be non-physical. But people are interested in God. They pray to God to go to heaven. For what? That is the point here. People want to go to heaven for enjoyment. So what exactly the goal of Artha Arti? The goal of Artharthi is what? Artha. Correct? Artha means pleasure, enjoyment, money. That is what is their goal. So they perform and they seek Ishvara for what? As a supporter or as a means, again.
As an enabler.
Yeah, enabler. Exactly. Enabler for their goals. So Artha is there. Artharthi is a little bit better because Artha is think about Ishvara only when they are in trouble. Artharthi, at least they have a prolonged thinking. They seek Ishvara and because they know that his blessing or grace is important. So Artha, Artharthi. So let's go to the 3rd category. Jitnyasu. Jitnyasu means one who desires to know Ishvara, just like all of us. All of us are here not to gain, because studying Bhagavad Gita, no, you're not going to become rich. You're not going to get any sensual pleasures. So we all are here because we wanted to understand Ishvara. We wanted to know Ishvara. So it is, they're not invoking Ishvara's grace for accomplishments alone, right? They want to know the truth about Ishvara because it is the ultimate cause of everything. So the Jitnyasi is a greatest devotee because he used Bhagavan as not an end, but he at least pursue Bhagavan. He wants to know Bhagavan. So that type of devotee is a little bit more evolved. Again, Krishna is saying, not saying that one is better than the other. He's saying that one is a little bit more evolved and matured than other. That's all. And then as a bhakta, The Jijnasu invokes Ishvara's grace for this, right? He also offers his prayers and performs every other duties. Nitya Naimitya Karma, he performs. But just like, look at each one of you. You have to work, you have to go do everything. But along with that, of course, you may pray for the grace of Ishvara in accomplishing your karma. But along that, you have a Jijnasa. Jijnasa means intellectual, spiritual inquisitiveness to know who is that truth. So that is what he has not yet known, but he is praying, he is worshipping Ishvara. So that's what the Jijnasu. And finally, the Jnani means the one who knows Ishvara, right? So it started as Artha. He can evolve into Artharthi because he recognizes, oh, this is a valid input. Prayer has some powerful. Ishvara is a good means. So he goes to from Artha to Artharthi. From there, he moved to Jijnasu. Jijnasu means he wants to know God, but he has not yet known. So finally, the one who recognizes Ishvara in its entirety. The recognition is complete. He gets he shifts his identity from the soul to the Atma, right? From the body-soul combination to the Atma. From the body-mind combination to the Atma. So when he shifts his identity from body, soul to Atma, what is going to happen? He becomes a Jnani. And this devotion is called Sadhya Bhakti. Sadhya Bhakti means there is no difference between him and Ishvara, because he changed his identity from being a limited person, that his identity is completely moved to the absolute. So remember, actually in the Vedanta class, there was a question. It was very interesting. So a wave recognizing its identity, but the wave has limitation. What is the limitation? The size of the wave is limited. The life of the wave is limited. All that is going to be there for the Jnani. But what happens? The Jnani knows that, or the wave knows that the essence of me is water, which is the essence of the ocean also. So like that, the Jnani recognizes its true identity. And this is called Naishkarmya Bhakti or Nishkamya Bhakti or selfless devotion, because he is connected with Ishvara 24/7 or the Bhagavan 24/7. So this is the 4 category of devotees. So once again, there are 2 categories of people we mentioned. One is the people who do not recognize Ishvara. They do not recognize Ishvara because of the dushkrita, the bad karmas, or because of their delusion, or they are not properly evolved. And such people, what happens? They essentially becomes an asura, and their mind is robbed, their discriminative intellect is robbed, and they just do all these nonsenses. So then the second category of people who had done the sukrita, they recognize the value of Ishvara, but they recognize the value of Ishvara and they recognize it in 4 different categories. The first category is Artha. They recognize Ishvara when there is a trouble, and then Artharthi is there. They seek a little bit more duration, Ishvara, and Artharthi, Artho, Jijnasu. Artharthi, Jijnasu is the one who wants to know Ishvara, and finally Jnani, one who is already identified with Ishvara. So in the next verse, Krishna is saying that who is the most evolved bhakta and why it is so. And then he talks about the different modes of worship, because Artha also worship, Artharthi also worship. And what type of forms of Ishvara they worship? Tam niyama. And who is worship, what type of worship it is, and all that is going to clarify a lot of doubt we have on the worship and recognizing Ishvara.
So Rajeshji, you were talking about Sadhya Bhakti.
Yeah.
That is there's no difference between Ishvara and him, right? So
Yeah.
what Ananya Bhakti?
So Ananya Bhakti is exactly the same. Sadhana Bhakti is there because there are 2 types of Bhakti. One is you look at Ishvara as a means for a different end. For example, Artharthi, I need to win a lottery. What is my real goal? Lottery or Ishvara? Lottery. And I want Ishvara's grace for that lottery.
Okay.
Okay, I have a disease. I'm praying to Ishvara. So what is my goal? Again,
the disease has to be cured.
Cured. And what is Ishvara? A means.
Yes.
Whereas for Jitnyasu, who is his goal?
To know that
Ishvara. And for Jnani, I am that.
It's already realized.
So that is the end, and the means and end merges, and that is what is the Ananya Bhakti or Sati Bhakti.
So what is Upadhi? The difference between the Ishvara and the devotees, is there something called Upadhi?
Upadhi means a means. So in the case of Artha and Artharthi, Ishvara becomes an Upadhi.
Okay, got it.
It's a means.
Got it.
So Rajeshji,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to ask a very tricky question, if you would please. So, like, we are talking about evolved devotees and, like, Jigyasus who are really seeking God for the purpose of knowing God, and not because they want God to do some, grant them some blessings or fulfill some of their desires, right?
One correction. A Jitnyasu can also be an Artha. A Jitnyasu can also be an Artharthi. Right? So, because, see, for example, each one of you all are Jitnyasu. But when you have Corona, didn't you pray to God?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That you are Artha.
Yeah.
And didn't you pray for your promotion?
Yeah.
But I'm just asking. Right?
We get into different modes. That's right.
Yeah. So what correction? Actually, since you asked that. So
yes.
Jitnyasu means Ishvara is also an enabler and Ishvara is also an end. That is the difference. So now please go ahead.
Yes, Rajeshji. So my question was that, for a person whose goal is to have Ishvara, that's the end goal, right? What if he actually wants to attain Ishvara because Ishvara is going to be like a Aladdin Chirag for him, like who will be fulfilling all his wishes? Why pray for one or two things? Just pray for the whole universe.
But then he becomes an Artharthi, right? Because
yes, exactly. So he deteriorates into Artharthi again.
Exactly. He is an Artharthi if he's because see, the one why we all, for example, you or me or Bhuanaji or Rohitji, we know that, right? We at least know that comfort and happiness are at least different things. We seek money because we know that the money can do a lot of things for our day-to-day life. But we all clearly knows that money cannot solve all our problem.
It is limited. Exactly.
Limited, right?
Right.
So we saw that actually why we seek Ishvara as the predominant goal, because we know that the ultimate freedom from all the sufferings can be achieved only by knowing Ishvara.
But isn't that also a selfish objective?
It is not a selfish objective, because see, everything is selfish from that perspective, right?
Right.
What exactly is the priority? Because what Krishna said is the priority is different, because what happens when when Maya is going to loot your mind, what happens? You don't see things properly. You think that you want something selfish, because ultimately everybody's goal is happiness, correct? Everybody's goal is happiness. What happens is a lot of people, they think that why do you need the lottery, or why do you need a branded car, or why do you need a big house, or why do you need that particular person with you? Because you think that object is going to make you completely happy.
Yes.
So this wrong priority or this delusion is what is forcing them to become Artha or Artharthi. And that is exactly the reason why Krishna is not criticizing any of them. Krishna is saying that, yeah, at least even because their goal is, okay, everybody's goal is, even for a Jnani and an Artharthi and Artha, the ultimate goal is the same. It is the seeking of your complete happiness. Right. Everybody seek happiness. But these people, the people who are not evolved, for example, if you ask a small child, your son, what do you means? It means, let's say that he's only 3-year-old, 4-year-old. What do you want to become? Sometimes he may say, I want a driver. People may say.
Yeah, policeman.
A policeman. Or I mean, it's not that policemen are bad, but I'm saying that
or a firefighter.
What happens is their vision is limited. They think that is the ultimate.
Yes.
lot of kids in India, when we used to grow, that time, like, what is your goal? You want to be a driver.
Yeah.
Who can drive fast.
Right. So, Rajji, actually, I was trying to compare with like maybe Mirabai or, Chaitanya or Ramakrishna Paramahansa, who had pure love for God. Like basically, they didn't really even care about their own personal sufferings. Ramana Maharishi, right? They wanted to, they were seeking God because like they were beyond that selfishness.
Right? So they are jnanis. When you are in jnani, what happens is the physical pain is only a pain. It won't become a suffering at all. That is the difference. So Ramana Maharshi's classic example, which was noted by his Western disciples who went there, he used to cry when the cancer was there. But the moment that pain is over, he was happy. But you and I, what would happen?
Miserable.
Miserable. Like we would have killed our life.
Yeah.
So because see, understand there is a higher purpose in life. Understand that there is a higher reality in life. We wanted to getting related to that. That's why I use the word, instead of devotion, I was carefully using the word related to. So why we relate to that? Initially, because it depends upon our understanding and maturity. Initially, our understanding was what? Okay, by gaining this much, $1 billion or $1 million, or a big house or a car or this relations, if my child smiles at me, etc., I'll be happy. So I need a support for doing that. So I seek that. And another difference between these Artharthi, Jignasu and Jnani is Artha when he connected with Ishvara. Only at the time of the prayer, right? Other time he's not forgetting. Means the time he tried to connect, it's like you have these dial-up connections long time back, internet, right? The laptop is not connected with the internet at all. Whenever you need, you try to connect. Sometimes it will be busy and you will get a scratchy connection.
Yeah.
And what happens? Jnani is like a dedicated line, T1 line, olden days. So what happens is it is 24/7 connected. So that's the difference. So you have that reservoir of knowledge and happiness all time with you. Artha's problem is he tried to dial in only when the problem is there. Artharthi, in between, he keeps connection so that the software is updated and he is up to date, so that he is afraid, like something happens, he wants this. Artharthi means he's constantly trying to pursue it. He may not get the connection always, but he's constantly trying. When you get the connection, when you understand, you become a jnani. So these are again, it's a dicing and slicing, but I feel that this is a good dicing and slicing.
Yeah, but one question. Swamiji gives an example of Narayana Bhattatri for Aarti. Okay, so when he was in distress, when he had severe stomach pain, he was praying it. But already he's a devotee, right? He started writing what was his life before that, before writing Narayaniyam?
Narayaniyam, he was definitely not a jnani. I would say he was a jignasu. Definitely he was a jignasu. But
so jignasu also can be Aarti when...
That's exactly what I was telling earlier, right? A jignasu can be an Aarti and an Artharthi. So Mayilputtur Bhattathiri, he used to make fun of Pudana. So Mayilputtur composed this Narayaniyam initially, meaning I think before all these things, like this, before composing the Narayaniyam, there is another person called Pundanam was there in Guruvayur.
Yeah.
He wrote something called Jnanapana in Malayalam and asked Bhattathiri to correct. He said, yeah, this is a Dravida Bhasha, Mlecha Bhasha, I don't even look at that. So he had a dream from Guruvayurappan saying that all the languages are equally good to me. So, but the thing is, a lot of people, right? The other day we talked about this. Even you can see the Maharshis falling down. In Purana, if you read, you get completely confused. These Maharshis, how many times they make all these curses and their problems, etc. It just to demonstrate that they can slip down. They fall into this maximum jignasu level. And this jignasu itself, there is different grades. Some people just for studying like physics, I wanted to be a scholar, so I study this. So that type of people are there. Then it varies. So this is a good topic. And then now what we are going to go is an interesting topic. Krishna is going to say that why jnani is more dear to me. He is saying that more dear to me, but he is more connected to me. The reason is exactly Jnani knows Ishvara in its entirety, whereas Artha and Artharthi and Jitnyasu, they know only bits and pieces. And out of that, Jitnyasu has a little bit more clarity and connection. So that's what.
So the Dushkritins can also become Sukritins, right?
Of course, with the prayer.
So, with their, no, because we have now separated two categories. We have moved two categories, right?
Yeah.
One is Sukritins, who all the four types of devotees fall under that. Dushkritins is all those Mudas and Aradhama. So now, how can they come join this group?
Absolutely. Sometimes maybe due to, let's say that up to 30 years or 40 years of their life, they may not have even recognized Ishvara. Sometimes a situational trigger, sometimes their karma, and sometimes like some effort, because you always have the self-effort. The karma is not a fate. The karma is only an input. You always have your own self-effort, and that self-effort can turn them into God sometime. And definitely these Dushkritikas can move into the category of Sukrita.
Sukritins, okay.
And also, sometimes opposite to evolution can happen, right? The evolution can happen in the other way also. Sometimes people who are devotees, they can go to the other categories also. So all that is possible.
So Rajaji, when all these possibilities are so random, which is more powerful, your own effort or your destiny?
First of all, there is no destiny. We don't believe in destiny. Karma, right? So let's use the word karma. So the thing is, means in the karmas discussion, that is what we were talking about. So consider this as a river flowing, right? Your goal is to cross the river. This is the discussion between Yudhishthira and Panchali. We were discussing that. So the karma is like the current of that river. So sometimes what happens, even if you put any amount of effort, what is going to happen? You cannot cross it.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens, if you, instead of driving, swimming straight, you drive a little bit upwards. So what is happening? You will reach the destination. Sometimes what happens, that if the current is in your direction, what little bit of effort from you will take you there. So what was the advice given by Panchali to Yudhishthira at that point of time was, if you think that your effort, right, is not sufficient, means you will feel the effort, like you put effort and everything is an obstacle.
All the time.
Two solutions was given. One is wait for some time. That is not the right time to do that action. Second is pray.
Absolutely.
So these were the
totally
two.
Logical.
Yeah. So this was the thing we discussed in the karma part. So the prayer, like even this Dushkritika was not a condemnation. Actually, Shankaracharya in his commentary makes it very clear. Human beings are human beings and all human beings are equally good. So here, when we say that Narathama, it doesn't say that they are not bad people. And the example used is, do you think that a 3-year-old child and a PhD person who is doing PhD, can you say that the child is bad compared to the PhD person? The only thing you can say is that the PhD person has a little bit more maturity and he evolved a little bit more. That's it. So that's all we are saying here. So please, because some people have a tendency to grade people and look down upon people. And especially I've seen that people, after studying little bit of Vedanta, the people who enjoys the material world, he said that fellow is gone. Who are you to say that? So let's keep that away. This is not judged to other people. This is to self-analyze.
There was a question.
And one more thing, Manoji, I just wanted to tell you this 6 years, 7 years experience I have. A lot of people came and told me that now I understand my spouse, why she's like that. This is not to criticize anybody.
So a person, this a little, this question was brought to me some time back. A person who prays for the success of a bad deed, okay, bad action, okay, they want to do, like for example, you brought out some curses and you brought out some people do evil deeds for other people and all that, right? So they pray for that and God is favoring them. Why is that? Why should it be a successful one?
God doesn't favor, like there's nothing outside of the law of karma is going to happen. And the law of karma is absolutely equal, and like if God favors you, he will favors you also, means X, he favors Y also. Now the thing is, what happens is when you do a wrong action, we have an opportunity called, once you recognize that you committed a mistake, you have an opportunity to mitigate the effect.
Okay.
The mitigation of that effect is not going to erase the karmic scar.
Correct.
Remember, we had that discussion.
Correct.
The last portion of the discussion, we said it is like a shock absorber. So the shock is going to be there, but it will be absorbed. So if somebody gets benefit when you pray, what happens is the prayer itself is a karma, right? When I honestly pray, the prayer itself is a karma. The prayer has a drishtaphala and another shtaphala. And the drishtaphala of the prayer is immediately, it is the peace of mind, it is the reduction of my stress, anxiety. And the adrishtaphala of that prayer is what? It's again some punya. It can materialize immediately and it may materialize sometimes later. Nobody knows that. So that is why it is called adrishtaphala. And sometimes what happens? Maybe that adrishtaphala is materializing now. So the kriyamana karma can materialize. Remember, we said the two karmas that can materialize in my life is the prarabdha karma and the kriyamana karma. Not all the kriyamana karma or the agami karma. Agami karma is kriyamana karma. So agami karma, not all the agami karma and kriyamana karma may not materialize, but some may materialize. How do you determine which? If I pray now, can you say that it is going to be come as a punya for the 15th answer action? No, it is beyond our understanding. We have no clue. Like if I pray now, which karma in the future is going to be benefited? Is that going to be benefited this life or next life? No way of understanding. But if you pray continuously, if you surrender to the will of God, definitely a brighter future is coming. That's for sure. And that is what explains. It's a very complicated topic, and I was really glad that we did that 3 sessions. That gave me an opportunity to refer almost several books and several topics. So we put a very good compilation of the topic of karma, because this is the most complicated topic in the Vedanta. Any other questions or comments? If you can chant.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Okay, sorry for that break. And we will see you on Thursday with Atma Bodha.
See ya.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. Good night.
Thanks, Rajesh.